Hey, crypto traders, welcome to this week's update. I hope you guys had a great trading week. What I'm going to share with you today is we're going to take a look at Ethereum, which I haven't shared with YouTube in quite some time. And what I'm going to show is some potential, the indication that this correction is shorter than expected. As you know from my updates on Bitcoin, I've been expecting a wave 4 correction and potentially seeing us hit 6,900 to even 6,300, if I remember correctly, last week. And we may be shorter. However, Bitcoin's not nearly as strong here locally in this action as I see Ether from an Elliott Wave perspective. And so we're going to dive into Ethereum. I'm going to show you what it may be indicating, how we manage this dynamic. On my webinar with subscribers this week, we spent a good hour and a half looking at strategy and different counts. And I really use this Ethereum count to explore strategy and managing these dynamics. We'll go through it pretty quickly here, and I hope this is helpful for you using Elliott Wave better, understanding my analysis a little bit better, and making it practical. All right, so let's dive in. So here's my Ethereum count. We'll start with the daily, and the way I count this is what's called a leading diagonal off of the December low. That's because it looks to me like the third wave is divided in ABC. There's an alternate impulse that has much further to go, which I don't have illustrated here. But right now I view this third wave in an ABC, which indicates a diagonal. And now the diagonal can still be the starting point for a very large bull market. So there's nothing bearish about this as long as we hold the December low and various levels of support in between. Now, I've been expecting, just like Bitcoin, this wave 4 correction to potentially decline down into the channel. And that's very typical for wave 4s in a diagonal. And to be honest, I mean, if it doesn't decline all the way down there, this may not be the diagonal, but the larger impulse, which I mentioned earlier, but we'll see. Now, when we dive into the local action, what is surprising to me is over the last 2 days, we've formed this potential leading diagonal off the low in 5 waves. It's not the best looking. There's some symmetry in here, especially in this third wave. This third wave is a little short. In fact, I need to measure it later and see, especially if we get an extension on the 5th. We really want our thirds to be along this wave, even in the diagonal. So it's certainly raising questions about its structure. But right now, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. And what this means is potentially instead of heading down into the low of the channel, we may instead break out into the 400 region. All right, and let's get these labels together. So that's what we're watching for. Okay. Now, one thing I use of subscribers often is where I see a potential long position. I use a triangle often as an icon to say the width of the triangle would be position sizing. All right, and I like to scale into trades. So when we moved in this wave 4, I cut back my holdings. I'm mostly long Bitcoin in my portfolio, but a little less so in Ethereum. And I would cut down into wave 3s. But as soon as we start the correction, to me, that's an opportunity to start to scale in and out of the trade. And so even down into the A wave, I scaled a little bit on. Ignore this bar here. It's we had some slippage in the data. Scaled down into this A wave, and then as this looked very corrective, scaled out of it here and there. Took some scalps short here and there, but I don't like to short wave 4s. They're very choppy, as you can see. And as we went down to C wave, scaled in again, and even now I've been scaling out. However, if this is a true 5 waves, then this indicates the start of our move up into the 400s. So this triangle here would be in the previous thesis would be, you would really want that larger position down into the channel, okay, and we would be looking for technicals to turn, et cetera, et cetera. Now that we have 5 waves, and right now we have a move up to, was this 274 this morning, I think it is? Let me get closer in. Yeah, it's 274.50 is what it says here. And now we're looking for a retrace of 382, which is at 255, all the way down to 236.89 now at the 764. So we're looking at that zone to scale in for a more aggressive trade. So I would take this triangle and place it at the base here, and we would obviously size it down. Again, this is just representation of position sizing. So we would start to scale in as this corrects today. And you wouldn't want to put your larger, more aggressive position on until you're near the stop, which the stop is 236.89, and you would do it a little bit below that. So the 236.50 roughly is where I would stop. All right. And so if it holds 236.89, then I would have an expectation that we move up in the 400. If we're below that by much, then I would expect potentially that I'm wrong in my interpretation. Okay. So that's how we make both Elliott Wave very objective in terms of sort of litmus test for this pattern, but also for position sizing and where we trade this. All right, below 236, you have a choice. You either cut that position back, you take it off, or potentially just get ready for adding to it as we go along. And it really depends on your financial situation, your emotional wherewithal, and your and how you positioned in this trade. And for me personally, I would cut it back. I mean, honestly, Ethereum is not a big trade for me, so I would put some on and I would take most of it off, and then look to scale in much lower into the channel. All right. So I hope that makes it really practical and objective in terms of trading. Again, if we look back at the daily, we're starting to come up on the daily MACD. That's an indication momentum is increasing, and I would say as long as we hold over that level, that would be the momentum would continue. Would be my expectation currently. Okay. Now, if we look at Bitcoin, now in some regards, Bitcoin looks stronger simply because it's already near the previous high. The problem is it has 3 waves, and I don't really like this start of this move because of just this wave 1 looks like 3 waves itself, which means that this is a diagonal in a smaller as well, but and only has 3 waves up. So that very much still could be a very high B wave if this really wants to be very wicked. That said, momentum looks strong. I have to be at least cautious about being bearish at all. But whether we go down in a smaller retrace, which right now really should hold above 778 roughly, 7775 in that zone for potential breakout to 13K eventually is where I project. Now what I like about this is that the smaller time frame projects to the same place as the longer time frame, and then often that gives us a very high probability situation. But before we jump run ahead, we need to see this follow through in 5 waves and have a retrace over support level in that region. Otherwise, if below 7,775, I have to look down into my previous expectation and thesis, which is down in the 6,300 region ideally. Okay. So again, taking the Bitcoin structure, trading wise, I've been scaling in and out as we go up and down through this way forward. Not always perfect, but at least profitably. And now that I have, if we can get this wave 5, I would potentially be a bit more aggressive, higher than I would previously. I mean, right now I've been waiting for the 6,300 to be very aggressive on this trade for the 5th wave, but I at least have to be ready to see how this fills in. And whether I want to increase. We can put a triangle here if that helps. A lot of people like that visual of the triangle to say, okay, where do I position? And right now, it would be a little triangle here as so. But if we break down below 7,775, we would want to move that to be very aggressive down in that lower region. Again, 5,300 is where I ultimately have very bearish stop for potential of either turning into a diagonal in Bitcoin or actually starting a new bear market potentially if it's really impulsive. Okay, I've said that in past the past YouTube. All right, and now if we look at technicals real quick, internals on Bitcoin, which I've shared in each of the updates. We could see also MACD's turning up on the daily, the stochastics turning up. RSI, which I've been expecting, as I've shared, to see it drift down into the 30 region. Instead, we'll take off the support level because it's sort of below support and then back up. Right now, if we're above this level around 70, we have a strong indication that internals are improving. And so there really isn't very little bearish in terms of momentum, very little bearish in terms of the overall movement. However, the price action from an Elliott Wave perspective is questionable given the sort of internal structure. All right, so that's where we're at, and maybe we'll be talking about that 5th wave up to the 13K region maybe next week. We'll have to see. We'll know. I'm sure we're going to know in the next few days. That said, we've got a spot to go long if we want to trade this aggressively. All right. I hope that's clear. I hope I made. I really hope that I made Elliott Wave a little more practical, thinking about it practically with this objective approach to price levels. How we position near the stop for a very measured, low risk trade. That's what's so key about Elliott Wave and how we use it. And I've demonstrated that on past videos using Elliott Wave that you'll find on my channel. All right, so that's this week's action. This is the way I see it. Again, not the same as my expectation last week at all. I'm definitely wrong at times, but regardless, there's a way to trade these things profitably if we approach them objectively. And here we go. So let's see what kind of action we get next week. All right, thanks, guys.